Want to start speaking as an entrepreneur, but don't know where to begin? Do you think you need a big stage to share your message? Think again. Kimberly Crowe shows how 4 types of stages can amplify your voice and grow your influence from scratch. Welcome to Rise to Lead, the podcast where heart-driven leaders come together to inspire and innovate. They will share actionable tips and insights that help you lead your team more successfully, advance your career or business as a leader, achieve greater impact, and experience deeper fulfillment. I'm your host, Regina Huber, guiding you through deep conversations about leadership that's rooted in service, freedom, and the desire to leave a positive mark on the world. Welcome to Rise to Lead. Today, we are joined by Kimberly Crowe, an award-winning international speaker, inspirational speaker, I should say, TEDx presenter, founder of Entrepreneurs Rocket Fuel, and host of Speakers Playhouse, an absolute authority on Speak to Sell. I'm thrilled to have you on, Kimberly. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Regina.
It's such a pleasure. Yeah, so inspirational speaker, I call myself that too. So we have that little thing in common, although I'm not a TEDx speaker yet, and I am probably not an award-winning speaker, but but that could still come. Okay, so Kimberly, let us know a little bit more about you and what the turning point was that led you from I saw that you had been a director of sales and delivery. So what led you from that director of sales and delivery role to becoming an inspirational speaker and entrepreneur?
Awesome. Great question. So, my story is probably a lot like those in your audience.
Mhm.
I did what they told us to do. I went to school, I went to college, I graduated, I got a good job with health insurance, and I worked in a corporation for 17 years and got promoted and got raises. And the 17 years, 15 of them were good, and the last two, not so much. And I realized that I was in a place I didn't really want to be. I had climbed a ladder that I no longer wanted to be on. And I think that a lot of people will resonate with that, that you do the thing that you think you're supposed to do or you think you're good at for enough years until you realize that's not really who you are anymore. And I was an executive director. I was looking around at the people who were at my level and above me. I was making great money, but I didn't really want to be them when I grew up. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And I knew that just wasn't fun for me anymore. And it was a point of crisis. And many people will say, like, a midlife crisis. Sure, yeah. But I don't know. I think we have several of them over the years, right? That we realize, wait, I don't really think I'm supposed to be doing this anymore. But when you're at corporate and you're making a lot of money and you're doing well, it doesn't really make sense to quit. In fact, they now call it golden handcuffs, where you're making a lot of money and it doesn't make sense to quit, but you don't love it anymore. And I was there. And I remember being at my desk at 10 o'clock at night, just in tears and praying, like, God, get me out of this somehow. Like, how do I get out? How do I get off this merry-go-round? And after resigning, I got rehired multiple times because they kept trying to find new positions for me, which was very kind of them. But eventually, I realized that we needed to part ways, and I resigned, and it worked. And fortunately for me, I had several people in my family that had been entrepreneurs. And I'd had some businesses on the side, little side hustles. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do a job that's like an entrepreneurship, and I'm gonna create my own world. And my friends and family said, well, that's great. And you were so good at what you did at corporate. Why don't you do that? And just hang your own shingle and do that. And I thought, okay, I can do that. And so I did. I created a business around what I was already good at. And I hired people and I won new contracts and I got new business. And my goal was to build it to $1 million in revenue. And I did it in 18 months. and I was miserable.
Hmm.
I was really unhappy because I knew that I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life. And yet I built an entire business around doing that. And I realized that I was no longer in golden handcuffs, but I had built a golden jail cell for myself. I built a
Golden cage.
business that I didn't want to do. That was probably the worst turning point. So if there was a midlife crisis, I don't know when it was in there, but it was somewhere in there. And I was really super lost. And I remember that one day I was supposed to go into work. I had clients scheduled, I had meetings scheduled, and I called in sick. And I thought, how do you call in sick to your own company? But I did. I called in and I said, I'm not coming in today. Please cancel my meetings. And I went and hiked a mountain that we had nearby. There's a mountain called Iron Mountain. And I was like, I get to this top of the mountain. Maybe there'll be somebody at the top that'll be a guru with a turban on his head and he'll tell me everything that I'm supposed to do. And of course, there was nothing up there like that. So I was really struggling, and I came back down. And I'm not only an entrepreneur, I'm also a mom. So I walked into the house, and my son said, "Oh, Mom, I'm glad you're here. I have a problem." And Regina, I don't know if you have kids or your listeners have kids, but
Nope.
I was so glad to hear that there was somebody else's problem I could focus on for just a few minutes because this one was too big for me to handle, right? So I said, "Yes, sweetie, what's your problem?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to be 15 and a half this summer, and that's too young to get a summer job and too old to go back to summer camp. So I don't know what to do this summer." And I said, "Oh, well, why don't we do this?" He was a little entrepreneur himself. And I said, "Why don't we create a new business around something you love doing, something that's just fun? And we could just have fun doing it." And he was like, "That sounds great." So we looked up in Google what he was good at. And he was great being on stage and he was good at improv and he loved little kids and he would read stories to them at the library. And so as we went and put all this into Google, then up came the idea of why don't you be an audiobook narrator? And he
Wow.
said, "Can I do that? Like, can we make money reading books?" And I was like, "I guess let's give it a try." So we did. I turned my business over for the time being to my business partners and employees, and we just started building this audiobooks business. And we auditioned for audiobooks, and we had all the equipment, and we started connecting with authors. And sure enough, we got so many books we couldn't handle all the business. We just got so much. We were having so much fun auditioning and getting the books that then the reading of them took forever and we couldn't get them all done fast enough. And so we decided that we would start teaching other people how to be an audiobook narrator so that we could offload some of the work. And they had so much fun. So now we realize that like it's not really about building a business around like what can you make money at. It's more about like what can I do that's going to be really fun? What can I do that's going to be super fun and exciting to do? And the business will follow that. And so that was a big life lesson for me. And while we don't have the audiobooks business anymore, that's been retired. Now, like AI voices are taking that over. But I started a business doing what I loved, which was speaking and teaching and creating events and opportunities for people to get on stage. And so that's my story. It's a long one. Basically, this trans is that it's not really about what I'm good at because if you don't love doing it anymore, just because you're good at it doesn't mean you should be doing it for the rest of your life.
Right, right. And again, there's a few parallels. I was also hired back by BCG at one point, and I was in the San Francisco office, and I'd just been to Argentina for a year, but the
Yeah.
crisis, the big monetary crisis, hit Argentina. And so at the time, it was a great opportunity. It was a great option for me. And then I left again also. But it was
Yeah.
also my way to get to the US for the first time with a green card, right? So
Wow.
it was a good option at the time, and then I left again for Latin America for many years and lived in two countries down there. But that's how yeah, it happened to me, or for me rather, as well. Yeah, so that's a great story though.
I love how you say for me because it's true. All the things happen for you,
Yeah.
not to you. So you have to figure out like, why did this happen for me? What's the lesson in there? Or what's the good that's going to come out of it? And honestly, if I hadn't been that frustrated, if I'd kept doing it, I probably would still be there. And
Mhm.
while that would have been another fine life and I would have made money, I don't know if it would have been as fulfilling. But I definitely know it wouldn't have had the opportunity to give other people a chance to get on stages as much as it has for me. I've put over 2,000 people on a stage in front of a microphone to share their stories. And to be able to do that and to say, I helped that happen is very fulfilling for me. And while speaking might not be everybody's cup of tea, I think it's really powerful for those that really want to and don't have a place to be able to do that.
Right. And that is the perfect segue to my next question, Kimberly, because I'm curious about Speaker's Playhouse and also the Entrepreneur's Rocket Fuel. Why should entrepreneurs know about them?
Good question. So, as an entrepreneur, oftentimes you'll be a coach or a healer or a creative that's made something amazing and you're ready to get it out there to the world, but nobody knows about it. You're sort of that best kept secret. You don't have a huge marketing team behind you, can't afford to do, Facebook ads forever or Google ads forever. And you want to be sure that you're successful. And a great way to do that is to get on a stage like a podcast or a radio show or a web summit or a real live in-person stage where you can share a little bit about what you're passionate about and people get to know you and your personality. And that's the investment that you make, is just speaking and sharing why you love doing what you love doing. And that energy is that magnetic pull. The why you are there and what you care about is that thing that people gravitate toward. If you post a Facebook ad, you get a little square and there's 5 words on it or whatever. That doesn't really bring about your whole personality or your why about why you do what you do. But when you get on a stage and you can tell people your story and then tell people why you love helping people, then that becomes magnetic. So it's a very easy entry level way for entrepreneurs to be able to share what they love, what they are passionate about, and start magnetically attracting customers in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I personally love in-person speaking. I also love, of course, online speaking because if I didn't, I wouldn't host this podcast and we wouldn't be here, right? And yes, absolutely, it is. And I know you talk a lot about speaking to sell. For me, it was more like speaking for lead gen, right? Lead
Yeah,
generation. And there are all sorts of different models. I've also done paid speaking occasionally, right? I spoke at a lot of banks in New York City. I spoke at events and so on in the past, more than now. And I'm just actually developing a couple of new talks because I feel a need to update myself and my content. So it's super exciting. Now, I'm curious about the 4 strategies that you guide entrepreneurial leaders through to ensure that their speaking message reaches and converts. So, what are those 4 strategies? I'm sure I can learn something also for my new talks.
well, you actually just mentioned a couple of them. So the first strategy is speak to sell.
Mhm.
Speak to sell is a great way to build your know, like, and trust and become an authority in your field, a go-to expert, if you will. But that speak to sell doesn't have to be, I have a program, please buy it from a stage. It can also be lead gen, as you described. In fact, it's any stage where you're bringing people along on their buying journey with you. So if you do lead gen, then probably what you're doing is getting on a stage, talking about what you love and teaching people about that, and then offering a freebie or a lead magnet or a list builder. Maybe you're inviting them to your website, or maybe you're inviting them to watch a YouTube show that you have. Or maybe if you're in person, you're inviting them to meet you in the back of the room and just have a further conversation. While that's lead generation, it is also in the category of speak to sell because you're putting them on their buying journey with you. And some people will decide to buy eventually. And some people will think, Kimberly's not exactly right for me. They'll move forward and find
Right.
somebody else that's a better match. All of that is fine, but you want to get them on the buying journey so they can learn more about you and start building that know, like, and trust. So stage number one is a speak to sell stage. The way to profit from that one is to give an appropriate call to action that is what I call the next natural step, the next natural step for them to take. It might be buy my stuff or buy my book or buy my program, but it could also be let's have a chat
Yeah.
or check out my website or grab my downloadable and get on my list so that I can nurture you into a sale later. So, stage number one, strategy number one is speak to sell. Strategy number two, you also mentioned, which is a paid speaking gig, getting paid to actually speak. And when you get paid to speak, you are an authority because now you're a professional. Somebody's paying you to get this knowledge from you. But many people only think of keynoting as a paid speaking opportunity, but there's actually quite a few more. I'll give you some examples of some that I've
Please.
done. You've probably done them as well. If you've ever taught a class and charged for that class, then you've actually been a paid speaker because you were paid before you spoke to deliver that knowledge to that audience. If you were ever a teacher, you were a paid speaker because you got paid to deliver that knowledge. I've also been an actress on stage. I've been paid to perform. I was a murder mystery dinner theater troupe member where we did a murder mystery for a group of people, and I got paid for that. Doesn't pay very well, but it is super fun, so I think that counts.
Yeah.
And then I also was an audiobook narrator and voiceover artist. I voiced over some commercials, some e-learning tutorials. And I also did probably the most interesting thing for me. I was an announcer at equestrian polo tournaments. First, I announced them for free for my kids' polo tournaments. Both my kids played polo interscholastically. And then when I was announcing one time, one of the local Del Mar polo fields people was listening to me, and they said, "You're a great announcer. Would you like to announce some of our professional teams when we have our regular people on tour?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely." So I got a chance to go watch a polo game, which is super fun. And then not only I didn't have to pay for it, but I actually got paid to announce the game. And people came up to me afterwards and they're like, "You're a great you're a great narrator. We loved having you." So it was very, very rewarding. But there's a
Oh,
lot of
that's
different ways that
awesome.
you can get
Yeah.
paid to speak.
Right, and that reminds me, you could also be an MC, right?
Yes,
Or,
absolutely.
or something I did a few times too is a panel host, leading a
Yes.
panel. And it's
Yep.
a lot of fun too.
Yep.
So there's so many options, right,
Yeah.
Kimberly? It's really amazing.
There's a third one. A third strategy is
Mhm.
actually an authority stage. An authority stage like TEDx. I'm very proud to have my TEDx out there.
Mhm.
If you have a TEDx, then you may do a speak to sell where you've got 50 people in the room, maybe 100 people in the room, maybe 200 people in the room. But if you do a TEDx, my TEDx has 70,000 views. It could have 1 million views. You could be in front of 1 million different people. And that, while you can't do a speak to sell or you can't get paid to do a TEDx, you can make a power play and get an authority stage as a TEDx. So I do recommend getting TEDx's or other authority stages that are out there. I was on the Women Who Mean Business stage. I was interviewed on Enterprise World Magazine. There are a lot of different ways that you can get out there and have authority just by being on that stage. And then
Right.
stage number four, or the strategy number four, is a rehearsal stage,
Mhm.
practicing your gift of being able to speak. And the way I like to do practice stages is actually by doing summits and podcasts, because having this amazing conversation with Regina is a chance to be able to hone my craft a little bit, get more comfortable speaking, talk a little bit with another person who's going to ask follow up questions. And then I can really say, aha, this is something that I really need to teach on in my next talk.
Absolutely. It's a great way to practice and have that exchange at the same time and get your message out at the same time. So there are so many benefits to being a podcast guest. I actually just got off of a live show, a Facebook, YouTube live show with somebody. It was so much fun. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and the live shows are also great practice
Yeah.
because you get to really think on your feet, right?
Yeah, yeah. Podcasts are great because they're recorded beforehand. I do everything other than podcast live because
Mhm,
even though live seems like it could be very intimidating, it's actually very engaging because
mhm,
you don't have to do any follow-up editing afterwards, and you're having a conversation sometimes with a live audience, and they're interacting with you as well, putting comments in the chat if you're on a Zoom, or raising their hand and asking a question, or having somebody come up to a microphone in a live event and ask a question live. And yes, it does make you think on your feet, but also after you're done, you're done. There's no editing, there's no work that needs to be done, and you can just move on with your next step of either closing a deal or making a new customer or making a new friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talking about that reminds me also being on TV is fun too sometimes. It's sort of similar, but yeah, it's I was on TV once in Cameroon and at the Meaty show, and we had so much fun, so much fun. And you know what happened, Kimberly? They called me literally the morning of the show, and I had to cancel meetings to get there, hop on a ca on a in a cab, and get there on time. But you know what? I had such a blast. There was no preparation. There couldn't be any preparation because I didn't know about it before, right?
That's
But such
wonderful.
a
Yeah. What a
blast.
fun
Sometimes,
experience and what a growth
right.
opportunity, right? And what a nice way to really be a
Mhm,
creator. I'm a big follower of Abraham Hicks, who is
mhm.
it's actually a lady, Esther Hicks,
Yeah.
who channels Abraham. And she talks about how we are all, every one of us, everyone listening to this podcast, you, Regina, me,
Mhm.
everybody that we've ever interacted with, we are all magnificent creators. And we were brought here to this planet to create something amazing. And being able to be live and not worry about imperfections, we are here to do exactly that, to do the imperfect and go ahead anyway. So, congratulations for just saying yes to something at the last minute and making it happen. But what a great creative experience you had there.
I had so much fun together with the host who was amazing, and
Yeah.
then they had a band actually, and they made us dance. So I even danced
I
at those high
love
heels.
it.
It was so fun. But I would always repeat that experience. Okay, so talking about those strategies, Kimberly, how would an entrepreneur begin to implement these strategies, or one of them from scratch, if you want to give us an example, or maybe you want to give us a case study?
Sure. So I think it's important to know that there's a lot of stages and speaking opportunities out there. I will meet entrepreneurs from time to time, and they'll say, "Oh, I have a goal next year of getting on a stage." And I think they think of it as like this giant auditorium with people in front of it or something. And while it can be that, it doesn't have to be that elaborate. There are many, many, many different medium you can get on: podcasts, radio shows, TV shows. You could even do Facebook Live. You could even do your own Facebook Live, and it actually brings me to stage number 5. There are 4 strategies, but you can wrap all those together into one and make it a your own stage where you actually create an opportunity to speak because you're inventing a stage. Now, sure, you could create a new podcast. That would be one way to do that, or a radio show, but you could just go weekly Facebook Live and just go every week on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, or Wednesdays at 1, or Thursdays at 3, or whenever you chose, and say, I'm going to do this every single week. I'm going to go live. And eventually, as soon as you have something that's regular and consistent, now you have a show. Now you have a weekly show that you are doing, and people are waiting to see the next one. In fact, if you get overwhelmed by that and you think, "Gosh, I'm not sure that I have something to say every single week," it's easier than you think. But a good way to do that is actually to bring a guest on. So you could bring somebody on that's a friend of yours that also would be of interest to that audience, and have that be a guest speaker. And your show can be any of the 4 types of stages. It could just be for practice. You could just decide that you're going to go on Facebook just for fun, or you could make it a speak to sell where you make an offer at the end for people to come see your website or subscribe to your show or grab your book. It could be a variety of different things. It could also be a paid speaking opportunity. You could put it inside a Facebook group and have people pay to be able to see your juicy goodness and your insights. Or you could have it be an authority stage by bringing on experts. Maybe you've always loved seeing Regina's show and you invite Regina to come as an expert to speak on your new show that you just created and have somebody that's an expert in another area come and share. So it becomes an authority stage as well. So it can be any of the 4 types of stages.
Yeah, I love that. I love inviting guests. This is also why I do the podcast, one of the
Yeah.
reasons, right? But also had a LinkedIn live show regularly in the past with guests. So that
Yeah.
was fun too. Yeah, absolutely loved it. So, and coming back to the case study, can you tell us about one specific person or example? Somebody, one of your clients who implemented one of those strategies or multiple
Yeah.
strategies.
So I have a good friend, Kara, and she had got decided that she wanted to start speaking. And so I talked to her about one of the shows that I have, and it's the Speakers Playhouse. At Speakers Playhouse, it's free, and it's a gamified networking event for stage hosts and speakers to be able to come and meet. We have the stage hosts come up and they talk about their show and what kinds of guests they're looking for and who watches their show. And then we have the audience that is the speakers who are trying to get on different stages. So if you see a show that you'd be interested in speaking on, then you can get on that, you can connect with them and get on that stage. We're not a booking agency, so we don't book for you. We just allow you guys to naturally create an opportunity to be able to connect. So then Kara goes to Speakers Playhouse and she sees 7 or 8 shows that she wants to get on. So she reaches out to a variety of different folks, and the cool thing is that I told her stages lead to stages. That means that when you get on a podcast, if you interview with somebody and you have a conversation with them, oftentimes they'll say, "That was a great interview. You'd be great for another show that I have, or a friend of mine should interview you. Or have you ever have you ever heard about this other stage?" And so, sure enough, she got on these 7 different stages, did all of them, and ended up spinning into other stages and other speaking opportunities. So all of the first 7, I believe, were podcasts. And from there, she ended up speaking on a couple of web summits. I have some web summits that she spoke on. And then from there, she decided, this is a lot of fun. I want to start creating my own show. So she created a podcast and started it just on her own and was speaking just sort of into the air. And that got a little bit intimidating. So she decided to have me on her show. So I went and spoke on her show and we talked about that experience. And then from there, she started getting people that were followers that were reaching out to her. She booked some calls with her followers and had people that actually became clients from that. And then from there, she got other people interviewed on her show. Then she decided to launch her own summit. So there's a lot of ways that you can do it. And if you just get started, if you have a goal, and if you think that you need to be on stage and you're worried about being nervous or not perfect, the good news is and the bad news is the same news. You're not perfect. None of us are perfect. None of the people that you've seen on stages are perfect in any way. They're all just human, just like you. And so, of course, they've made mistakes in the beginning. Of course, they've fumbled over their words. Of course, they have. And you will too, but that's okay. People just see that as real and authentic. And if you try to show as perfect, one of 2 really bad things is going to happen. The first is your audience will say, "Oh, well, Kimberly's perfect. And I know I'm not perfect, so I could never do what she's doing." And you won't get people that lean in and want to transform. The second thing is that they'll say, this is worse, I believe, they'll say, "Oh, she thinks she's perfect, and clearly she's not, so I don't want to work with her." So that those 2 things about trying to show up as perfect isn't going to do you any good anyway. So really the best thing to do is just show up as authentic. Be a goofball a little bit, fall down on your face sometimes, and then just keep going because that's what humans do.
That's why I also love the Q&A parts of talks so much because it all falls away. It's really about having that conversation directly with people, right? And sometimes you have to have a presentation, you have to stay exactly on time. These are some requirements sometimes that you
Yeah.
have as a speaker, right? Because you don't want to go overtime. You also
Yes.
don't want to be too much under time. So yes, you
Yes.
definitely have to practice so that you actually know how long it takes and all of that, and can adjust and whatnot. But then there's the Q&A, and then that's when everything just falls away and you can just have that conversation. I love that part actually, when there is a Q&A, right? It's not always the case, but sometimes that's an option.
Yeah, you bring up some very good points. The part about staying on time is critically important. The practice of getting on other people's stages and figuring out, okay, well, this one I have a half hour, this one I have 20 minutes, this one's an hour, and being able to stay on time and make sure that your content gets out, not rushed, but also it flows nicely and you don't run out of time. Time is the number one thing you've got to stick to when you're on somebody else's stage. Very important. Stage hosts do not like it when you run overtime or you get too short on your time and then they run out of things to say. It's very difficult for a stage host. But the other thing that you brought up about being having a practiced presentation, most of my presentations are not rehearsed. They are not, well, they're rehearsed, but they're not scripted. They are not memorized in any way. Of course, I have stories that I've told over and over again, like the story about having my son and I create an audiobooks business, and that's a story that I've told so many times that it just comes a little bit more naturally. But it's never been scripted. It's not written out or memorized. I don't use PowerPoint in any of my presentations because I don't think having people look at the slide and take screenshots of it is really connecting with them. So I try never to use PowerPoint if I can avoid it. And so leaning on a PowerPoint presentation to remember where you are in your talk is something that you should get over as quickly as possible. If you look at the real masters, the Brendan Burchards, the Zig Ziglars, the Tony Robbins, they do not have memorized talks. They speak to a topic and they're well versed in it and they just share. As a matter of fact, I was on with in a mastermind with Brendan Burchard and asked a question. A question was asked about TEDx. Brendan has never done a TEDx. And he said, I will never do a TEDx. They make you memorize a talk. I have no interest in doing a memorized talk. And I thought that was, and he was pretty adamant. He said a lot more about it than that, but it was very adamant about it. And he said, it's scripted and they read through your script and they approve it or they don't. And that's a violation of free speech. And why would I do that? And I thought that's a very powerful argument against having a scripted talk. And I loved it.
Yeah, for us foreigners and
Yeah.
who don't have English as a native language, right? And then speak in English, that is sometimes a little bit of a hurdle, right?
Oh,
To really
yes.
trust ourselves, to yes, stay on topic, to yes, stay, well, not on topic necessarily, but really get through the structure of your talk because
Sure.
you want to do want to have a structure, of course, because
Yes.
there should be a certain strategy that
Yes.
is behind your talk, right? Because you have a goal with it, and you want to you intend a specific outcome, right? Even though
Absolutely.
that's not completely plannable for, but you have an intention with it. So that how do we work with people so that they can move through that hurdle or jump over it?
Yeah. Yeah. Even the experts that I mentioned, Brendan Burchard always works in
Mhm.
frameworks, right? I have a 4-part framework that I want to teach
Right.
you, or it's the 6 A's of accountability, like, or the acronym that will get you past fear or whatever it
Mhm.
is. And so you have some sort of structure. It's more like a skeleton that you're hanging the clothes on, right? That you're
Right.
that you're making sure that there's something there that you're going to take people through, but it's not memorized. It's not word for word. You're going to say this every single time. I want to address something else that you mentioned, which is so powerful for your audience to hear, that English is not your first language. And here you are creating a platform, speaking off the cuff and making a guest feel totally comfortable when English is not your first language. I want to share with you, first of all, kudos for doing that, because I have spoken many times in Spain. I love being able to travel. I go to Latin American countries because I speak enough Spanish to be able to get by and know and have, sort of a general hello conversation and be able to find things and get, talk to the waiters and have a conversation. But I cannot teach in Spanish. It's not something I can do. And it would be so powerful to learn how to speak in another language so that you could perform, so that you could educate, so that you could teach, so that you could have a platform to speak on. So you're a better woman than I am in this category, Regina. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's amazing what you've done, and really a testament to your bravery, your strength as a speaker, and your professionalism as well. So congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. I have actually taught in Spanish, Portuguese, and of course, my native language, German.
That's
and English.
amazing.
I speak French, but I cannot teach in French, not yet. I
It's very
wouldn't take
daunting.
anyone through that. But yes, I definitely did trainings in the past for those audiences, and I've done a few shows as well. So yeah, it is a matter of practice, in the language, of course. And then, of course, I had the advantage that I lived in places where those languages were spoken, or else it would be much harder. So, but I'll take the compliment anyway. Thank you.
My pleasure. I've lived in Spain, but I do find myself gravitating toward people who speak English to have like dinner conversations and things with them. It's just I need to spend more time immersed in order to make that happen, I think. But or maybe it's I'm at a point where you can't teach old dogs new tricks. I don't know.
Oh, no, I don't believe that. It's just like also, Spaniards, they speak very fast. And if you're at a dinner with the Spanish, then it's hard to keep up sometimes because it's usually loud and fast. I mean,
Yeah.
it's part of the culture. I love it. But it can be a bit challenging to even keep up with what's being said and follow the conversation. That was definitely one of my challenges when I moved there for the first time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So, yeah. Now, I do have another question for you, and that is, if our listeners could take away just one action to be more visible with their message as a speaker, and especially as an entrepreneur, what would that be? What could you share with us?
The world is in need of leaders. The world is in need of help and guidance.
Mhm.
And you don't have to know everything before you start helping other people. If you think of a schoolyard when you were young, if you were a kindergartner just starting in school and you went for your first day with your little lunch pail, you didn't really want to learn where to put your lunch pail from the teacher or from the principal or even the noon duty aide. You wanted somebody like a first grader or a second grader to show you where that lunch pail goes, to help you and take your hand. Even a second grader is a genius to a kindergartner. So no matter where you are on your path, don't think that you're not able to help somebody who's just a little bit behind you, who needs just a little bit of encouragement to be able to do what you're doing. And what you're doing might be amazing to them. And you don't have to be an expert and know everything before you start helping other people. So, my message to you would be what you have learned at this point in your life has brought you further than some people have gone, and you can help those people take those extra steps. Your stuff that you've learned is magic to somebody else. What you think is normal and ordinary is something that other people would love to learn how to do. So consider that and then bring your genius to that stage and be able to share that with the world so somebody can be that little kindergartner and learn a little bit more from you.
Absolutely. That is so powerful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And so, what's next for you? Any upcoming projects, events our listeners should know about? I know you have something on October 1st.
Yes, as a matter of fact. So Speakers Playhouse is every single Thursday from 10:30 a.m. to noon Pacific. It's free to join if you're looking for speaking opportunities or if you have a stage and you interview guests. We would love to highlight you on our show. On October 1st, I don't know when this is coming out, but as we're doing this interview right now, I have something called Potapalooza. It happens a couple of times a year. Potapalooza is a one-day event where you learn about podcast guesting, about creating a podcast, about converting from podcast guesting to be able to get clients from speaking on other people's podcasts, to learn how to show up authentically and how to promote and make sure that you get seen and heard in a bigger way. And Potapalooza is very special in that our VIPs get a chance to get interviewed during the event by featured podcasters. We feature about 30 podcasters on it, different ones every time. And if you attend as a VIP, you get to select which podcast might be a match for you and get interviewed during the event on up to 5 podcasts. So if you have a goal on getting on a podcast every month, you can knock out 5 months worth of activity in a single day. Then I also have a new program that I'm doing. I've created over 1,000 stages, over 1,000 speaking opportunities for people to be. I'm sorry, I put over 2,000 people on stage, and I've created over 100 events to be able to create those speaking opportunities. Some of them are one-day events like Potapalooza. Some of them are summits. Some of them are podcasts. And I do a new thing where I'm teaching people how to create a one-day, powerful, profitable virtual event. So if you want more information on that, I would love to connect with you, and we can chat about what's next for you.
Awesome. And where should people connect with you?
They can reach out to support@speakersplayhouse.com. That's support@speakersplayhouse.com, or just go to speakersplayhouse.com and register for the event and come play.
Awesome. Yes. And we should just be on time with this podcast being published just before that October 1st deadline. So I hope we can make it happen. Okay. So Kimberly, thank you so much again for coming on, for sharing all these valuable tips, all your wisdom and your strategies. And it has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for your kindness and your professionalism. What a delightful interview and a conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it, Regina. Thank you so much.
I can only say the same. Thank you again. And I appreciate everyone listening, all of you all over the world. Pass this along to anyone who might find it useful. Share it on your social media. Let's get these insights to more people. And see you next time with yet another incredible guest. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss it. In the meantime, rise to lead.
If something in your leadership feels off, or you're ready to lead with more ease and authenticity, let's talk. In a free 60-minute Lead and Thrive session, we'll cut through the noise, get honest about what's really going on, and map out your next bold move. No cookie cutter, no surface level, just real clarity and the freedom to lead as you. Spots are limited. Go to transformyourperformance.com/Lead Thrive session to grab yours. Lead like you mean it.